Welcome back to the Hustle Unfiltered podcast hosted by Kayla and Jackson Mansuti,
where we dive into raw, unfiltered conversations about training, health, and fitness while navigating the challenges of life and business in our 20s.
Play.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to episode number 2 of the Hustle Unfiltered podcast. Kayla, what are we covering today?
We are going to be covering balancing it all, the training, the business, the relationship, and finding balance, or so-called balance in it, because there's not.
There
is no balance.
We'll get into it. I think there isn't. I think there's levels and there's pushes and pulls, I think.
But also I think everyone's definition of balance is very different as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I think what looks like balance to us doesn't look like balance to
definitely not.
other people, and vice versa as well.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to trying to quote-unquote balance all that stuff, fuck it, just run your business and who cares about anything else? David Goggins, who's going to carry the boats?
Oh, God.
Nah. I mean, look, I think if we're speaking from experience, like we've definitely had phases of our lives where some things have taken over more than the other. Like, in my opinion, it's more about, like, you're going to have points where, even let's just take the relationship, right? And I really do believe in this. It's never always 50-50.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 60-40, sometimes it's 70-30, sometimes it's 90-10. Like at some point, someone's got to be the one who's going to be carrying the relationship, carrying the boats. Sometimes someone's going to be the person who is being carried a little bit, and I think that's okay as long as you're not constantly living where it's like I'm always 90, you're always 10.
Yeah.
I think that's when it gets unhealthy. I think that's when that's when things can sort of start to become very almost like you can start to resent each other.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm doing all the work. I'm, whether it's like preparing food for you or like, cleaning up after you or even just like intimacy. It's like, I'm always the one trying to hug you or kiss you, all that sort of stuff. It's like, if it's always like that, that's when it gets out of hand. That's when you got to have maybe that conversation like, oh, you need to pull up.
Yeah. But that'll always come back down to, I think, having the conversation regardless of whether or not it gets to that point or is about to be at that point, just being like, look, this is what I'm navigating at the moment. I'm probably going to need you to carry part of the relationship a little bit more. And like your prep, for example.
I was going to say that, yeah.
That's like perfect example. Like the last 4 weeks, it's like I knew you were busting your ass. So it's like I will cook, I will clean, I will do whatever I need to do just so that way you can save the very last brain cell you have in your brain. I was
just a living organism.
Yeah, it was just like this.
I was a shell.
Absolute shell. But like that, for instance, is like for that period in time, it's like I knew what was required and we had those conversations beforehand, and that made that process a lot better. Whereas if we went into that situation being like, I'm going to be 50-50, I can handle this, I'm going to be great. And then it's like gets to a point where that's not the case. That's when also shit can go south because the expectations were also very, very different.
Yeah. And you've got your prep coming up this year, which is obviously very exciting. But, there's going to be a point in that where it's like, okay, I'm going to have to carry, I'm going to have to do the food prep, help you out, drive you, whatever it might be. Because we've had that conversation, and we had a very tough conversation at the end of my prep. There was a point where I was, to be quite honest, I fell into what I would say is like a short-term like depression.
Yeah.
And I think that was just because I was focused on a goal for so long, and then like within, I did one show, and then it was exciting. It's like, all right, cool, I got to get to the next one. I got to be better. Push myself further, and I did that, and I got rewarded for it, and then I got to do it again, and then it's like you get rewarded for it, and it's all about you, and you have this goal, and it's really exciting, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And like it was hard for me to navigate, and you saw me. It was I was struggling. I was like waking up, and I was like, why do I feel so fucking upset all the time? Why do I feel down? Like it was like really.
You've had this massive purpose for so long, and now it's just like, now what?
Yeah, when people ask me like what was the hardest part of prep, it's like, yeah, sure, the dieting's hard, but it's like after's harder because like you're still fatigued, you're still in a hole.
Yeah.
You don't just like your body doesn't just be like, oh cool, like we're not prepping anymore, so I'm gonna like go back to normal.
Yeah. I feel like you can kind of justify the shit feeling you will experience with the hunger and the fatigue leading into it because you're like, I know this is for this day. I know this is for this goal. But yeah, after it's like, why am I still doing it? I've achieved the goal. Why do I still feel like shit?
Yeah. I remember messaging Jason and being like, hey bro, I know like I'm carving up and stuff for this show, but like why do I still feel like shit? And the best way he described it was like, you know, if you've been in the sun for like, you know, 30 weeks and you're burnt, just because you get out of the sun for a day or two, you're still burnt. That doesn't change. And I think the post show is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had that conversation. You're like, hey, look, I know you're post show, I know all these things, but we need to start getting back to a point where we're having better conversations. It's not just about how shredded you are or how much your ass looks like a walnut. Or
I feel like it got to a point where the depth of our conversation was, he's a pump pick, here's a pump pick, I'm shredded. How much do you weigh? I weigh this. How much do you weigh? I weigh this. And cool.
Yeah. And I think that those periods of times are going to happen.
Yeah, it was fun.
And it was still fun. Like we got to travel.
Yeah.
You know, we still had really cool memories and it was still a great time. But definitely there was a conversation that needed to be had there where it was like, okay, let's have some normality back in our life. Let's talk about going to dinner. Let's talk about life, like not just about prep. Yeah.
Now we just talk about life and business.
Yeah. And it's the same with business. Like, you know, obviously you've had some periods of time where you've been pushing really hard and I'm picking up the slack there. And I think it's just, in terms of quote unquote balancing, you have to be okay with the fact that there's going to be times where you're picking up the slack, they're picking up the slack, and just have those conversations. I think 9 times out of 10, all these things can be literally mitigated just by a simple conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Podcast over. We don't need to keep going.
This is why we're doing podcasts. This is our therapy session. What are you talking about?
Well, I guess like we could probably run through like, you know, what are we preparing to do for both business, our relationship, and your prep alone, just to like sort of, you know, manage that.
We'll go through the prep stuff because we already spoke about that over the weekend when we went to dinner. We can go through what we set for our non-negotiables.
Oh, yeah.
So when we had our anniversary dinner on Saturday.
Delayed anniversary.
We
were dieting and, you know.
Yeah, we were being skinny queens. Anyway, he brought the conversation about like what will be the non-negotiables kind of going into my prep. And I think one, it's also really been helpful that we got to experience your prep because we kind of understood what we did really well, what we can improve on, and now we can practice that going into this one.
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning. What did we do well? What didn't we do?
I'd say we did communicate quite well.
Yeah.
There's definitely rooms where we could have probably communicated on things faster rather than letting it drag out and like wait a couple of weeks before it gets a little bit out of hand and then be like, okay, we should probably fix that. But I still think as a whole we did communicate very, very well. I think we understood each other expectation-wise from the get-go. Like we knew that some things were going to be sacrificed towards the back end of prep and like it is what it is.
Yeah. You thought it was going to be way worse.
I did. You really made me think that you were going to be some terrible human.
Set the bar extremely low and exceed expectations.
When you explained your photo shoot prep, he just sounded like he was the most miserable, like, can I say cunty? Like, you were the most cunty human. And I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. Like, I'll be fine. Like, I'm a big girl.
I think I matured a lot in that time.
Yes, you did. And even growing in our relationship together, I know you've matured. But I was expecting you just to be like that. In not necessarily the same, but like I thought he's probably going to be like
short fuse,
cunty, like the whole time. So I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like it is what it is.
I wasn't, by the way.
No, he wasn't. He was actually still quite nice. But it was more, I think, I wouldn't say this is something we didn't do well, but I think this is just something that happens with prep. It's just like the lack of intimacy towards the end. It's just like a hug for a 2 second. And then like that's probably was the hardest part is like there wasn't that. It felt more like friendshipy. Yeah. Versus like you're my boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
And at the time though, I think also we're both under an immense amount of stress. Like you were taking your business online. Yeah. There was 4 people living in this apartment. Like we were on top of each other.
Yeah.
So.
I think for that point in time, like even though you were prepping, I think even what I was doing, it was probably the perfect time to do that because I also had no capacity to do anything else either.
Yes and no. It's true. Sweep it under the rug.
Not even that, but it's just like, you know, like I feel like I didn't take things to heart as much because I was like, I'm also in the same position right now.
Yeah.
In a different way, I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like,
I mean, to paint the picture for the audience, it's like, you were trying to take your business online. You were running a giveaway. You were working face-to-face as well, doing like 15 hours a week face-to-face plus like 30 on your online.
Yeah.
And then, you know, photo shoot prep, you're training as well, you know, spending around, you know, 2 hours in the gym a day, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever it was. Then, you know, you were living between our apartment now and your mum's.
Yeah.
And my brother was here, my sister-in-law was here, like all these things. I was prepping. And then for me, I had my prep. Was living here with my brother and sister-in-law. I was doing, I think at the time I was peaking at like 35 hours of face-to-face sessions a week.
Yeah, you're doing a lot.
Which was also a blessing in disguise because I was like just working and then I was trying to build my online business plus training, 2 hours in the gym, posing, like all those things. So it was like a cocktail of like stress. Like it's like if you drink that, it's like see you later.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a rough time, but I think I'm glad that happened at the same time.
No, I wouldn't change it. Like, is there things that I wish I did better? Yeah, 100%. Like, in my opinion, I could have. Like, I think when you're in it, it's really hard not to. And looking back at it, like you know, when you do it and when I go into it again, talking about expectations, and we've had these conversations, it's like you just have to accept it and you can't complain about it because it's only going to make it worse. And I know towards the back end, I was like, oh, this sucks. This sucks. It's like I fucking chose to do it.
Yeah.
It's obviously easy to say that right now because I have 3,500 calories a day in me. But like, you know, when you're in it, it's hard. It is difficult and it's something that you have to learn to manage.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I said to you to make sure that when I'm doing it is like, don't let me complain about it. Or even don't let me complain. But it's like, if I do complain about it, like remind me that this was my choice. Like,
yeah, I think you can acknowledge it.
Yeah. Like, look, this is something I'm even learning more about is like the complaining side of things in mentoring. It's like you can say like, oh, like, you know, like this is hard, but like move on. Like even your tone and how you say, or are you like, oh, this is so fucking hard. Like, oh, like there's a difference between acknowledging like this is a challenging thing, but like life moves on versus actually sitting in that and like complaining and expecting someone to like comfort you in that.
Yeah, I think it carries over more than you realize because like let's take the prep or let's take training or even just business. Like you lose a client or you have a bad training session or you're suffering from your diet. It's like then when you go home or when you are with your partner or you're with your friends, whatever it might be, it's like that energy that you have, then you're like sort of a bit resentful to them because you're like, oh, fuck, I had a shit day. It's like that carries over into other parts of your relationships and you don't realize that all because of like you're letting something that, you know, somewhat out of your control. Like you can't control your hunger hormones. Yeah, of course, like you can eat a certain way and structure your calories and macros to, you know, mitigate that. But it's like you're in this. And it's like if a client leaves, sure, you can take responsibility of that too. Or if like you lose a bit of money that week from your business, it's like, yeah, of course, take ownership of it. But are you going to let that carry over into the reason that you're not enjoying time with your friends and family and your partner?
Yeah, it's the same thing with training. One bad session or even one bad exercise doesn't mean you can't still walk away from a good week of sessions or a good training session itself. That was one of the biggest things I had to navigate with face-to-face with some of my girls where they put such a big big expectation of themselves to like nail their first exercise. And if the first exercise didn't go well, it was like downhill from there. But it's like, okay, we spent the first exercise, we had to refine a bit of technique. Yeah, you didn't lift as heavy as last week, but you performed this movement better. That's actually okay, but you've also got 4 other exercises too. Make those 4 exercises count.
Yeah, of course.
Progress them, whatever you need to do. Like just that one, you're making 1/5 of your session dictate the whole thing and determine whether or not that's a good session.
Yeah, and where your energy goes, it grows as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if you're putting your energy into feeding the feeling of whatever it might be that's not positive, of course, again, acknowledge it. But if you're feeding into it, it's going to carry over into other parts. And then this quote unquote balance of things goes completely out of whack.
Yeah, there's a quote I've heard. It's like your personality dictates your reality or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you what you perceive is what you see. It's like, you know, when you like, I mean, I don't know, I do. When I'm looking at a car that I really like, And it's like, oh, then all of a sudden you start seeing it more on the street. It's just because you're more aware of it.
When I started dating you and you had your old car, I was like, I swear I see this fucking car everywhere in Sydney now.
Yeah, because you're just more aware of it. And it's like, that goes the same with like where you're putting your energy in terms of like your relationship or whatever. It's like, you know, if you're constantly thinking like the grass is greener or whatever, you're going to be more aware of that.
Yeah. We've learned a lot of that watching maths lately.
Yeah. Don't tell everyone my secret.
Maths every single night. It's been interesting
It's
to watch.
my guilty pleasure.
Yeah. bit of trash reality TV.
Yeah, it takes me off. It's my little wind down process.
I feel like it winds us up more because there's so much drama. We're like, fucking get him, Jamie.
Yeah.
Go, Jermaine.
But in terms of other non-negotiables for your prep, what are you focusing on?
What did we say? We said the complaining to pull me up, to hug me.
Actually, that's important because I spoke about this to Nick, who I trained with last week.
Yeah.
When he was prepping. Obviously, I competed against him in the shows and stuff, and he was asking me about my relationship and just like how we navigated. I think obviously, you know, I think we did a good job, but I said like I think it's important to even give the intimacy when you don't even feel like it, because the reality is it's like it's not deceiving because like you still love the person, you still care for the person, but if you don't feel it in that moment, still do it anyway, because to them or the other person, it might feel like that's a really important part of their day, you know, or it's like it's an important part of their relationship, especially if you're speaking about like love languages. It's like their love language is physical touch. Like if you don't feel like it and that's fine, just fucking hug them anyway and make it longer, give them a kiss or whatever it might be, just for making the effort, because it's going to come back. You're going to feel that again. Yeah,
it's not a permanent thing. It's literally just...
Yeah, but that's you giving the 60 in that, you know, in that aspect of things. Yeah. Even though they might be carrying 90% of everything else, that's you giving that extra couple percentages.
Yeah, that would be the next one, the affection.
Yeah, the affection. I'll just like grab you.
You probably will be able to pick me up with like one finger.
Yeah, being like 50 kilos.
We said that. I don't remember what the other ones that we said.
I actually wrote them down so I can check.
That's good because I forgot. Those were the only two I fully like remember.
We said one date night per week.
Oh yeah. So when you had your prep, we made sure that at least one, like every Saturday night is usually the night we'll have like some level of a date night pre. Doing like a macro-friendly meal, something that you can have and something that I can have that doesn't deter away from your prep.
Yeah.
Calories and macros, whatnot. So it was good because in winter last year, it was obviously really cold. We just made pho every weekend.
Yeah.
And it was like
until perfect. I was under 2,000 calories.
Yeah, well, it was perfect because I was in a build. You were dieting at the time.
Yeah.
But we're still doing it. So even for that, it's like we got to share a meal together. We got to eat basically the same thing, but I could obviously make it count towards my own goals and you got to make it count towards your own goals. But for the most part, you ate the same every other day.
Yeah, 100%.
It was just that one meal. And that only changed before maybe 2 weeks before your first show? 4 weeks before your first show?
Yeah, 4 weeks before the first show.
Yeah, it really only changed them. And that was really nice. To even just know, like, there's an intention meal we're having together. We get to cook together and spend that time because even regardless of whether you're in prep or not or when I'm in prep or not, it's for the most part, we're just eating out of containers all day. Yeah. Like we meal prep on a Sunday and it's just like grab the container, heat it up, off you go. But at the moment we are cooking. Well, you're cooking my dinner at the moment. You're preparing my dinner. But I think even just having that half an hour in the nighttime just to actually spend time, have a laugh, make the food, sit down, eat together.
Yeah, even just going that extra mile and like, you know, making the room feel like you're at a restaurant. Like
we put the
candles on and, you know, dim the lights and, you know, just make that effort to be present with one another. I think that's super important.
Yeah. We can put the fake fireplace on the TV.
Yeah, the fake fireplace.
We can do that next time. But yeah, that's a definite other one as well. Just to keep some level of normality in that. And not even just for me, also for you. And vice versa.
Yeah,
like during the prep, like that was also very much for me.
Yeah,
while you were dieting.
I felt like it was definitely a lot more for you than it was
Yeah.
for me. Because like obviously I enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
it's like to me it's like it's just another meal.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just food.
yeah. Because like when you're there, you're just sort of like, okay, it's another meal. I get to eat, awesome, and then I'm hungry after. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't actually do much for you.
No, it doesn't even tickle the sides.
But yeah, that'll be another one.
Yeah, and I think also something that's worth noting on that as well is just like if it is a point where it's like you're gonna be maybe I'm pulling the slack up in that time a little bit more. Like if we're talking about having this balance and of up and down and it's like it doesn't mean that then when you finish prep it's like now I get to do nothing. Now you have to pull up. It's like
it's not a you can't go into it expecting the same return from it. It's like you're doing from the goodness of your heart.
Yeah.
Regardless if they choose to pay it back.
Yeah.
But they also do. It's not like they're not paying it back. It's just like, cool, you go back to your normal balance, whatever it is.
Yeah, back to the 50-50
–
or whatever it might be. And it's like even like post-show, maybe it'll take a little bit of time for you to get back to that point. And I'm not going to sit there and be like, brother.
I need my 80%.
Yeah, make dinner for me. Where the fuck's my sandwich?
Yeah.
How are you going to manage business heading into that? Because obviously like we've covered the relationship side of things. But like do you have some non-negotiables with business that you're going to try and manage as well?
To be fair, I haven't thought too deeply about the business side of things.
What a time to do it.
But like I guess like the depths I have thought about is just more so making sure all my ducks are in order leading into it. Ideally, I would like to have some level of like, I could say scaling depending on if they understand that. Or like automating, like where, the business is still growing and it is still doing its thing and it's moving in that direction without me necessarily having to be in the business 24/7. Because even, again, watching your prep and even doing my photo shoot, it was great. Like I knew I could handle both and I did handle both and I got through it. But how I felt, I don't necessarily want that to be the case going into this prep because I know the stress levels are going to be even higher. Yeah. To the degree that I'm pushing myself to. And I think as well with that whole experience, I want to do it well. I want to do it properly and I want to give myself the ability to do it in the best way possible. And if that means like, business wise, I need to set everything up now and get all my ducks in order, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
And even just knowing that when I do have the shows on and things like that, like something obviously I haven't done very well is taking time away from work.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to go into my shows not having to think about work on the day.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I could have done better. It's just like leading up to it. I mean, the week after my last show, I took a week off.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 even.
I think you took 2 weeks off.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
And I was very happy I did that. But I think leading into it, I probably should have maybe done a week off as well.
Yeah.
And like, in my opinion, it's like, obviously, like, to preface this, it's not about making, of course you want to make life easier, but I don't want anyone to take away from this that you have to like steer away from hard shit. Like I think one of the things we learned about ourselves was that we can handle a lot. Yeah. And it's like, the only way you find where you redline is by going there.
Yeah.
It's like you have to be able to go there first to know where the limit is. If you're constantly cruising at 40 Ks and just being like, yeah, we're getting there. It's like, cool, maybe at points in time you do that. But it's like, there's going to be a time where you need to push it to that limit and find where that line is. And that's probably going to be a point in time where you're going to do that. And you're like, cool, I found the limit. This is where I can be. Yeah. And the other thing I think in terms of making that life a little bit easier is just like the communication to your clients and being like, hey, look, like, while the shows are on, like, might be a little bit slow getting back to you. Maybe there won't be a check-in that week, but, we'll make it up for when I'm finished the shows or whatever it might be. And just, like, letting them know, like, where you're at as well. Yeah. Because also I think, as much as we sometimes don't realize it, I think your clients look up to you. Yeah. And then, like, vice versa as well. Like, at least with me, when I was still doing face-to-face, a lot of my clients expressed, like how well I'm doing. It's like, you know, so like you're an inspiration, what you're doing. Because they see that it's hard and they can see you suffering.
Yeah. See you on your deathbed.
You see it on the deathbed.
Yeah. No, well, even with that, it's when I say like get my ducks in order now, it's like looking at the timelines and being like, okay, when realistically would I actually have to take time off, and getting that sorted now rather than waiting till it comes around and being like, oh, by the way, like going to be competing on X date. So just making sure that's all kind of sorted, and even just the work side of things is like if I'm working on any projects or doing things now, I've got the time to, there's not a lot being taken away from me in terms of the training aspect and the goal aspect, but it's like going into that, I just want to make sure that I can still service my clients how I need to, but I'm not working on anything else on top of that.
Yeah, I think
it's just doing, okay, you work with your clients. You
it's maintenance mode.
Yeah.
And it's like the percentage wise with the relationship. If I'm giving, 70 and you're giving, 40, whatever it might be, it's like the same with business. It's like maybe instead of giving 100% to the business and trying to grow, you're at a point where it's like, I'm just maintaining for now.
Yeah. So that's really probably business wise.
So in terms of what about training, like what's the mindset in terms of balancing the training with those things? Because I think if we look at it, and again, I'm just using numbers to make it easy to understand, it's like the training in terms of what you're giving is going to be 100%. The business will probably be, 60%, and the relationship maybe like 30%.
In my head, I'm like, it needs to be 100%.
Yeah, that's the problem we have.
I'm like, what do you mean? Business gets 60%, I need 100. No. But yeah, that's probably will be what it is. And it's interesting because training just always is 100% in my brain.
Yeah.
I feel like when training starts to slip, that's when something's not going well.
Yeah. I don't think it will slip.
No, not slip, but if I know when my training takes a hit, not even performance wise, but if I like the motivation side of things, for example, if I notice that training is like not there, I'm like, okay, where is something off elsewhere?
I can tell you now, you're not going to be motivated 5 weeks out.
No, that's a different side of things though. That like prep, I know I can, I'm expecting.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about in terms of like because the thing is as well is like it's not just the training anymore. It's like I think you become more all encompassing. Like you saw me, it's like started looking into my sleep a lot more. Like it's like sleep, it's training, it's cardio, it's posing, it's recovery, it's all those things. Like what's the mindset behind that that's going to allow you to give that 100%? Like what other things that you might do on top of that to show that? Because like you're 100% now, but all you have to do is be in the gym for an hour and a half.
But to be fair, I feel like I'm getting ahead of that now.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
And even like if I was to compare that to when I did the photo shoot prep, the one thing that was sacrificed out of all of it was my sleep. Like I just did not look after my sleep, and then that I felt that. And that's one thing I want to make sure I'm doing now. And I'm not going to wait till I'm in prep to look after my sleep. It's like now we've got a bedtime. Like we're in bed by 9 p.m. every night.
I'm going to put you to bed.
Yeah, as much as I fucking hate going to bed and I hate sleeping, I'm making sure I'm doing that now because that's something I don't want to have to do when I'm dieting. So like the sleep side of things, I'm definitely looking at now. Even recovery, like I'm doing some stretching, doing some foam rolling.
Mobility queen.
But I'd say if there was anything else I was to give on that, it would be maybe a recovery session twice a week, like doing the sauna.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Like that'll probably be something I introduce then. I don't necessarily want to add it in right this second.
Yeah, I went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Red light therapy.
Yeah, I came over one day and he just had like this like red thing in his room.
It was like a brothel.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? And we weren't allowed to sleep with the TV on.
I think that was a good idea though. We don't even have
Look,
TV
I'm better now, but that's been something my whole life. I've never been able to sleep without some noise.
Oh, really?
I literally if the TV turned off, because I'd set a timer when I was younger, if the TV turned off before I fell asleep, like I'm awake, turn the TV back on, reset.
Wow.
I've never been able to sleep without it on. That's why I hated sleepovers. Because I'm like, I hated sleepovers because of that, and also if I didn't know how to turn the shower on.
I need pitch black, quiet.
Yeah. I feel like I can get away with it now because I'm sleeping next to you.
Yeah.
By myself, though, YouTube video.
When I go to Melbourne,
laying in the background. When you go to Melbourne, that laptop is sleeping in your spot. I don't want to hear any sort of noise. I don't want to hear a peep in this house while I'm by myself. If I hear a peep in this house when you're here, I'm like, okay, you're good. You're going to go. That's the balance, guys.
that's the balance. That's me taking the 50-50. If someone's in the house, I'm killing him.
Yeah, he sleeps on the door side because if someone comes in...
Actually, my brother called me the other day. He goes, I got a baseball bat. I was like, what the fuck did you get a baseball bat for? He goes, you just never know.
We have baseball bats at home. I have my old baseball
bat.
Well,
it's funny you say that. So when I lived in my, the house I grew up in, my dad had a baseball bat behind the bed. And I was like, one day I saw it. I was like, what the fuck is that for? He goes, just in case. It's like fucking classic old wad guy. Like, just, I'm surprised he didn't have a shotgun behind the bed. Well, he actually did, but it was downstairs in the safe because, legal.
Oh my God. No, me and my dad both play baseball.
Yeah.
So we both had bats, but I had this little...
Get a mitt and...
We had this little pink one because when we went to America when I was younger, when we did our first baseball game, I got like a Padres little like mini bat and it was like pink and mini. But that was the weapon of choice in the house because his bats were all downstairs and so were mine. But the actual weapon of choice was a little mini pink wooden baseball
If I had
bat.
to defend ourselves, I'd be grabbing one of those knives.
That's if you can get there.
Yeah, that's true.
I always think that, this is so off topic, but even like at home, where the window is where the kitchen sink is. And that's where all like the dishes are, like at mum's. Yeah. I'd always think if someone ever tried to get in there, they'd like die instantly because there's always knives sticking straight off. Like it'd do the work for me.
Oh, the scenarios that you play out in your head are wild.
Mate, if someone lived in my brain 24/7, they think like you're actually not okay.
I know, you tell me. Like to bring it back to everything, whether it's business, your prep, or like the phases that we go in, like there's going to be points of sacrifice. Like there's going to be points where you're going to have to sacrifice a level of the relationship. There's going to be points where you're going to have to sacrifice a level of growth in your business. There's going to be points where you have to sacrifice training. Like I know for me at the moment, like I tick my boxes with training and I do all the right things, but like I know there's maybe with work, there'll be a point where it's like the second priority or third priority. Like I know for me, at least after the show, training was like really not a priority.
Yeah.
It was like I was still doing the right things. I was doing a recovery phase. I was in the gym for like half an hour.
Yeah.
And I was still doing the cardio and doing the reverse thing properly to get my health back and stuff. But it was like the two main priorities was our relationship and getting business back on track.
Yeah. And I feel like that makes sense. So even with that, like obviously training is important and that whole phase after your prep is important, but I feel like you also don't need to give it.
Yeah.
All of your energy like you would in the middle of a build phase with your training sessions where you're going into train to build muscle and whatnot. Whereas that is like, just to get your body moving, just to make sure you're recovering properly. And I think even with that is managing the stress side of things as well, coming out of that.
Yeah, 100%. The stress plays a massive role because like there's gonna be sacrifices at times. Like you'd be silly in a relationship to think, or even just in business or whatever it might be, like the sacrifices that you make as a business owner and as someone who's like chasing like some sort of physique or training goal. It's like, I've been speaking to some boys lately and it's like, I stopped drinking. I haven't been on the drinks for 2 months. It's like, I'm like, how do you feel? He's like, bro, my training's great, all this sort of things. It's like, yeah, no fucking shit. And it's like, I know for us, we've made massive sacrifices in our life, like massive, but it's also fucking 8:30 on a Friday and we get to record a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, I went to Europe and I had fun and I did all those things. But then after that, I was like, okay, cool. Like I had my fun. That's it. Yeah. And in that time, I've sacrificed a lot in terms of just my business. And I realized that I'd rather sacrifice a few big nights, fun nights, and maybe even some friendships for a life that I get to enjoy and live.
Yeah, I agree. And even on that as well, it's like, if you're choosing not to make the sacrifice or you're like, is it worth it? It's like probably not worth it in the moment.
No, of course not.
Like,
Sucks.
it's like, okay, you see your friends are going out or, you know, whatever it may be. And you're like, in that moment, it's like, this feels like shit. I have FOMO, whatever. But if that means in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years down the line, you have the house, you have the relationship, you have the business, and that's actually part of your long-term goal and that actually fulfills you more, that's going to pay off more than that one night out with your friends.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the
Whatever it
problem, though.
may
It's
be.
not. It's not one night.
No,
It,
yeah.
it never is. Like
No, of
it's
course
one
not.
night a week, and then it's like maybe 2 nights a week. It's like, and maybe it's only 2 nights a week, but those 2 nights a week take you 4 days to recover.
That was my realization to know that this was not for me anymore.
Yeah,
The
100%.
going out. I remember we had like a Christmas party a couple of years ago, and like I don't even think I was drinking that much at the time. I got drunk, whatever. And it took me the whole week to recover. I remember like having to do check-ins and I was like, I feel disgusting. Like I cannot string a sentence together. My brain feels like mush. And I'm like, if this is what it's like to go out every weekend and run a business, I'm like, I'm not in that. Like,
Yeah.
going out, gone.
Yeah. And there's obviously like, you know, around Christmas time, like maybe
Yeah.
we do that stuff and we go out and we have fun, but it's like 9 times out of the 10, 80% of the year, it's like we're pretty locked in.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, to quote the man himself, Chris Williamson, like if your friends say that you've changed, it's because they don't know how to say you've grown.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're, and this is something that I think is super important because we're talking in terms of sacrifices for your health, your fitness, your business, your relationships. If people are saying that to you and you're there like giving you a hard time for not staying out past a certain time or not coming out every weekend and only coming out every now and then, it's like, were they really your friends? Because like I've had to make a lot of those decisions as well and had to come to that realization. As you said, at the time it feels like shit because you feel like people are turning on you. They say you're different. They say you're not the same you used to be. But it's like, is that actually the person that you want to be? Is that? And again, it's like, you know, we've had these conversations with people where it's like, if you're constantly with the people that you do that with and all you can ever talk about is the times that you've had together, and unless you're on the drinks, you can't enjoy the present moment with them, then I would argue that those people aren't really your friends.
Yeah.
Because if you can't sit down and have a conversation with them sober and talk about your goals, your future, what you're working towards, and the things that you truly value, what the fuck's the point?
Yeah, it's not I don't think that's a friendship that's going to be long term or pursued again.
Yeah, so there's a lot of sacrifice that comes in pursuing any goal, whether it's business, training, or whatever. And as we know, the prep one is a big one because you make so many sacrifices with that. You sacrifice relationship, you sacrifice, you know, intimacy at points, you sacrifice dinners and that sort of stuff. So it is, there is a lot. And in terms of the expectations of that as well, no one tells you that going into it. You know, I think if I had to run it back and someone told me what I'd have to do to run a business, like, fuck, I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, we said that last time. I was like, I thought I'd just be writing programs and training people for the rest of my life. And like, that was the extent of it, but not everything else that came with it. But I think if I was told that at the time, probably the same. I wouldn't have been able to fathom that. But I feel like as well, now where I'm at, I'm like, I can see why I need to do this and I wouldn't change it for the world.
No, of course not. Because, like, I would argue I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah.
And that's because I've set my life up in a way where I get to do the things that I truly want to do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, of course, like, I have enjoyed those times. Like, Europe was a fucking great time. I had an awesome moment. Like, it was a great period of time. But it also set me back in a way that I was like, would I do it again? Yes, I would. Like, if I was to change it, no, I wouldn't. But I know that for me to get further into where I want to go, like, I can't be doing that now.
Yeah.
You know, even just like us with dinners and stuff, like we sacrifice, like we schedule dinners in accordingly so that we're not being silly with how much we go out.
Yeah.
Because we're like, one, our goals with our training. And then two, it's like, well, we're trying to generate income at the moment and putting all that income back into a business so that one day we don't have to worry about however the fuck we go out to dinner. We don't have to think twice about going on a holiday.
Yeah. Well, that also applies to if you have financial goals. If you want to save money, if you want to do anything with that, there's also that sacrifice as well.
On that as well, it's pretty funny. It's like when I hear a lot of people talk about, it's like, oh, I've got to save money for Europe. It's like, you know, if like you can do it for that, you can do it for anything else. Like, you know, if
you can save money for a fucking Euro trip, you can save money for a deposit for the house.
Yeah, or
Like-
even if it's like just anything else that's actually, you know, going to be helpful towards your life. Because I think
in any goal.
Any goal, yeah. If you can have that mindset where it's like, no, I'm not going to do that because I have this.
Yeah.
It's like you can apply that same mindset to your training. No, I'm not going to drink that beer. No, I'm not going to, you know, stay out longer than this time. No, I'm not going to eat that because I have X goal.
Yeah.
It's like if you can put that mindset that you have towards saving money for a Europe trip into going into that, then you can achieve anything.
Yeah, 100%. I never thought of it that way. In the Europe analogy.
Well, yeah, I think just because people our age, like that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, go do it.
But that's something that they value as well. And that, I think that also ties in that whole conversation.
100%,
It's like,
yeah.
what do you value? It's like, if you value growth, if you value your health, if you value seeing progress in that regard, it's like, if you've done the Euro trip before and you've had that mindset, it's like, now you can apply that to.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, like, I don't want anyone to listen to this and say, like, don't, like, oh, I'm saying don't party, don't have fun.
This is just really helping the analogy side of things now.
It's just, for me, it's like, I think you should have those experiences. You should make those mistakes. Like, I am the biggest proponent of making mistakes. You should always make mistakes. Not on purpose, but you should give things a go and make mistakes.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, and I think you go out, spend time, you know, having the big nights, doing all that. So you can say, well, yeah, I did that, and that's not what I want.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just a realization of saying that, you know what, this is fun and it's great, but it's like, where's this going to get me?
Yeah.
Because it's fun till it's not. It's fun until you wake up one day and you're like 26 and you don't have a missus, you don't have financial stability, you still live at home with your mum or your dad, or whatever it might be, and you're like, well, fuck, yeah, I have a job, but it's like all that money just goes towards the weekend. You know, it's like, maybe you should probably be you should definitely be asking yourself some questions about what you're doing with your spare time.
Yeah.
So to wrap that up, in terms of you know, navigating business, navigating training, relationships, there's going to come a time where you're going to have to give more than the other person. And same with your business, there's going to be a time where you have to give more to your business than you get back. And same with your training, the results won't come straight away. And you have to set expectations and make sacrifices in order for that to happen.
100%. And I think balance looks different to everyone.
100%.
What you see on social media being portrayed as balance is probably not going to be applied to you, and that's also okay. I think one thing to even also say, I definitely got caught in that as well. Seeing how other people see balance, it's like, you know, you have the slow mornings, you have like the 50-50 with work, with the training, with this, and like, you know, listen to your body and all these things. And it's like, if that doesn't apply for your goals, like, don't listen to it, because that can hold you back as well.
Yeah, I definitely fell into the whole morning routine thing for a while there.
Yeah, morning routine, I think just even as a whole, just the listen to your body and like move, like make the decision based on like that moment. It's like, oh, you don't feel like training? Okay, like listen to your body. Balance.
Yeah, you don't feel like doing work.
Listen to your body.
Yeah.
Balance.
And there's times for that, but at the same time, like there's going to be times where you have to just fucking grit your teeth and go.
Well, it's all intentional.
Yeah.
As well. It's like, okay, look, yeah, I don't actually fucking want to do this right now, but the intention was set. I have to get this done. Like, there's no other option.
Like, if you got no money in the bank account and you're struggling to make ends meet, fuck, I don't care how you're feeling, mate. Like, you got to work.
Yeah.
And we've done that. And we've been in positions like that. And you could argue there's points where we still are.
Yeah.
Because we're like, yeah, cool, we're in a good place, but like, we want more.
Yeah. And
there's nothing wrong with that. I think the problem with that, I think the pendulum has swung in two different directions. We've gone like in terms of social media as well. Like, people have gone in the direction where it's like, yeah, you know, listen to your body, take your time, don't work too hard. And then people have gone way too much with that, like the Goggins mindset, like always grind, you know, all that sort. And I think in terms of balance, you need to have times where you're Goggins, and you need to have times where you're having the slow mornings, going for the walk and doing that sort of things. And it's like, you just got to know when to do those things.
Yeah.
Find the limit, find where it is, push. You know, if you have the breakdown, you'll be okay. You'll recover, know where that limit is, and then just float in between that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.